Renfield is the latest Nicolas Cage movie. Of course, if you remember anything about Mac and Goo from 2022, we loved last year's Nick Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think we both had it in our top 4 at the end of the year. The best comedy of the year, one of the best comedies in recent memory. And it was Cage caging it up. And Goo, guess what? Renfield gives us Cage caging it up.
Absolutely. And a lot less Cage in this movie, but I also thought might have been the perfect amount of Cage, making you want more.
I would say a very good amount of Cage. I didn't leave there thinking we needed more, but I would have taken more. I also didn't feel like he was underutilized.
Correct. Like, I don't love parts of this movie, but I feel like if they gave us too much Cage or even more Cage, it'd be like, okay, that's a bit too much.
Sure. Yeah, I get that, because the movie is called Renfield, and ultimately, at the conclusion of this movie, we're more concerned about Renfield than we are Dracula, so it all makes sense. Goo, Renfield, a rated R comedy, fantasy, and horror film. I think it did all three of those pretty well. It wasn't overly scary or scary really at all, but kind of the gore and the kills, I guess, would lead you to some horror stuff.
I'm going to be a lame-o right now and say that it's horror adjacent.
Yeah, it operates in that realm.
Like, I think it can be a fun Halloween movie, like, say, Shaun of the Dead is.
Sure, but Shaun of the Dead is scarier than this movie.
Yes, but this movie has some gross out, not even from the action, but some gross out stuff a la The Fly.
You know what this is like? It's like, is it Tucker and Dale versus Evil? It was a similar vibe to that. Have you seen that?
I think this might have had, just from like the gruesome aspects of it, might have been a little spookier than Tucker and Dale, question mark.
All right.
Is it close to Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah, but
those are the movies that this is with.
There's no real jump scare in this movie. There's no legitimate reason to be scared, you know? So it's just not that scary.
It's horror adjacent. It's
horror adjacent. That works. Goo, runtime of 93 minutes. So it's pretty crisp. It's pretty quick. I did look at my phone once, however.
I did too. Movie. At the 1 hour mark, I was like, how far along are we and how are we going to land this plane?
Yeah, I think I probably looked right around the same time as you did. On Rotten Tomatoes, Goo, 63% from the critics, 82% from the audience. That feels about right to me.
I agree completely, because I don't think this is for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a little surprised. Actually, I'm a little surprised the audience score is that low, because if you like Nick Cage, I feel like you're really going to like this movie. The critics score makes sense.
Yeah, but if you're a huge fan, say, of the Dracula universe, this movie does pay homage to that. It does give you Easter eggs for that, but you also might not like them poking fun at your Dracula.
That's a good point. That is a good point. On Metacritic, they gave it a 55, so in the same range as that 63. Honestly, for like a horror comedy, I consider that pretty darn good.
Yeah.
50s, 60s from the critics. Goo, this is written by Ryan Ridley, who has written some Rick and Morty episodes, an Invincible episode, 2 episodes of that show Ghosted. Do you remember that? Adam Scott, Craig Robinson.
Oh, hell yeah.
And also was a writer on Community. And for when I kept looking, it seems like this is a Dan Harmon guy, one of Dan Harmon's top writers on all.
Feels like it. Yeah, it feels like it.
Second writer on this was Robert Kirkman, Goo, who is the creator of Invincible. Also has wrote a million episodes. He might even be the creator, I'm not sure, on The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. So really all his life has been for the last 20 years has been The Walking Dead and Invincible. Goo, this is directed by Chris McKay. He did that Tomorrow War movie with Chris Pratt from last year. He also directed Lego Batman and quite a bit of Robot Chicken. So also kind of a funny guy here. I had no issues with the direction. Didn't stand out one way or the other.
Yeah.
If you're into what he's done, upcoming, he's got Lego Batman 2, which I didn't know that was announced, but that is like in production.
Are we sure that's happening? What year?
I didn't click on it. It just
what could they possibly do? Because they jammed every Batman reference possible into the first 30 minutes of that movie to the point that they ran out of references.
Yeah, they've shot their wad for sure. Also announced to be directing the Nightwing project. I'm not sure that ever gets made, as well as the Johnny Quest movie. Not sure that ever gets made as well.
His future projects are things that are not going to be made.
So I didn't see the Tomorrow War, but what I've seen from Chris McKay, I would say I'm in on what he's doing tentatively.
Yes.
Goose synopsis, and I read this as I was typing it out, and I don't think it's a very good synopsis. But Renfield, Dracula's henchman and inmate at the lunatic asylum for decades. Do they mention a lunatic asylum in this movie at all?
Did you get the right synopsis? Because this is
Yeah.
already wrong.
Yeah. Yep. This is straight from IMDb. Longs for a life away from the Count, his various demands, and all of the bloodshed that comes with him. Now, all that was right.
Well, I guess chop out the first part and then you're all set.
About the lunatic asylum. I don't know how that got on IMDb.
Yeah, because he was just trying to make money with the castle.
Yeah,
he was a door-to-door salesman, pretty
greedy
much.
Greedy guy trying to make it rich, and he did a deal with the pseudo devil. This stars Nicholas Hoult as Renfield, the titular character. I thought he was actually really fucking good.
Yeah, I thought he held his own with Cage, and he was the great straight man to what Cage was just throwing nonsense at.
Absolutely. Speaking of Cage, he plays Dracula, the whole reason why we were interested in this movie.
Nick fucking whoa, Cage!
He did not disappoint, Goo. It was everything I wanted it to be. That's for sure.
Really was, and he just cheesed it up. And this is a huge compliment. He chewed the scenery.
And I don't know how to phrase this other than, if you love Nick Cage the way that we do, there's no way you won't at least like this movie. You don't have to love this movie, but like baseline, you're going to enjoy this movie because of Cage's Dracula.
If you like Nick Cage, he is exactly what you want him to do with Dracula. He does exactly what you want him to do with Dracula. By the way, I just noticed that your name is Macula.
Yeah,
I messed up. My name should be Dragula.
Ooh, that would have been good, Goo. That would have been good.
Up.
Goo. Awkwafina as Rebecca. She was better than she usually is. However, Awkwafina is incredibly annoying, and her voice is like nails on a chalkboard.
So I was going to say, her character stinks.
Yep.
Not her fault, though. She's actually, I think, at her best until like the 20-minute mark towards the end, because she kind of just turns back into Awkwafina very oddly at the end of the movie. But she isn't just playing herself this movie, or the character that we know her as.
She's better in this than she was in Shang-Chi.
Yes.
If that does anything for you guys at home. I can't do she's always like doing this, and her voice, I can't do it with her. But she doesn't really distract too much in this movie. Goo, another shining star of this movie, as he always is. Ben Schwartz as Tedward Lobo.
So Ben Schwartz did make me laugh in this movie, but the storyline with the cops and the mob, I thought was dumb. I didn't really care for it.
I couldn't agree more with you on that, but Ben Schwartz made me laugh. As
he made me laugh, but like when Renfield and very specifically Dracula were not on the screen, I'm just like, where are they? Why aren't they asking where they are?
No, that's true. Fair. Goo, this is a real doozy of a name. Shohreh Aghdashloo as Bella Francesca Lobo, Ted Lobo's mother.
Correct.
Have we seen her somewhere before? She looked very familiar. She looked like someone like if you tuned into a midday soap opera, she would be on it. That's what she reminded me of. Brandon Scott Jones as Mark. He was that group leader that Renfield goes to. Yeah, he was funny. I've definitely seen him in something else before, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Adrian Martinez, who we've also seen in a couple other things, plays Chris. That's Awkwafina's cop partner. And then Camille Chen is Kate, which is Awkwafina's sister. Those characters are worth mentioning because they play a part ultimately in the story that we actually don't care about.
Mac, let's jump right into the octagon here.
Ooh.
And let's go ahead and start with fun factor let's start with fun factor to which I would say Hoult and Cage are just having so much fun on screen. You can feel that, and you're having fun with them.
Yeah, I bet they had a blast filming scenes for this movie. I legitimately laughed almost every time Nick Cage spoke. This scene, the specific scene that made me cackle, and is one of the funniest scenes of the year, because that still the agent scene in Air is probably funnier, but this was right there for me when Cage is in Renfield's apartment just mocking him as he's trying to come up with an excuse. It absolutely fucking killed me.
Whereas I think the funniest scene in the movie is when Cage is pretty much like the Fly. He looks gruesome, and just him like very slowly walking up to Renfield.
Yeah, sauntering
Killed
on
me
over.
every single time. Yes. Satisfactor, did the movie satisfy you? And I thought the movie, the tail end, the end of the movie, did come full circle.
Yeah, the ending was good enough. There was enough humor in this, but ultimately I was personally satisfied by the Nick Cage Dracula. That, the story could have been even worse, and I still would have been pretty satisfied with what I saw.
Borometer, was the movie boring? And I do think for a 93-minute movie, it ticked too much.
Yeah, there was a little bit there, like right at the end of the second act or the beginning of the third act, when they're trying to kind of set up for that final, showdown, when Cage is sort of going over to the mansion, Hoult and Awkwafina are like hanging out in the apartment, just chatting it up. There was some bore in there.
I would almost just say whenever it was a cop or a mob storyline, I was just bored.
That's fair.
I just didn't care for it. Halloween, will our interest in this movie wane over time? And I think I might have gained a dog over the last week.
Yeah, I came out. I've been like smack dab between two numbers here for the last day. And I don't know. It might go down a dog to the lower dog of the two. But honestly, I feel like there's enough fun and gore here that it's going to be pretty rewatchable.
Quater, and I think it's better than 2017's Aquaman.
Yes, agreed.
Pants Tent City, Excite Bike Mania, what got you going? And I do think that the gore in this movie, because the gore comes when you feel like the action is getting a bit samey, and then out of nowhere, someone's losing a limb, a head's getting exploded. Give me that.
Yep, that was all pretty good. I actually thought the fight scenes in this movie were spectacular, like really, really good. I just watched John Wick the other day, which I'll talk to you about in a couple days. There was a couple fight scenes in there that were close to John Wick level. I was pretty impressed with the choreography, specifically in the bar scene and then the apartment complex were very good. And then of course I legit got a laughing pants tent from Cage mocking Hoult in the apartment.
Now, we're not going to argue Wick right now because this is a Renfield podcast, but the editing in Wick is way better in the fight scenes than they are in this movie.
Sure. I don't give a darn about editing.
All right. Well, editing makes things, better to take in, especially when it's a fight scene. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. All right, yeah, Mac?
Stop talking to yourself over there. Credit
Union. Who are you giving credit to?
To me, it's pretty clear Nicholas Hoult. He plays the straight man this whole movie so that Cage and Schwartz could shine in their scenes and be so funny. And I also thought on top of him just playing the straight man a la a Jason Bateman role, I thought he was really good. That character he plays, you could feel the emotion, what he's going for there,
For those of you tardy to the Mac and Goo party, we rate everything on a 40 hot dog rating system, Mac. And from the get-go, this movie is good, gory, ultra-violent, over-the-top fun. The movie is funny enough, and it's kind of dumb, but my kind of dumb. Cage and Hoult, I thought, were awesome in this. The relationship between the two, the chemistry, everything on stage, they're having so much fun. Not on stage, they're on the scene. They're not doing a stage play in this, Mac.
We get it.
But I do think that when they were not on screen, there was a bit of a bore. The pacing wasn't great, and that's not the best for a 90-minute movie. But because of Cage, because of how awesome Cage is in this, I'm looking at 32 dogs.
Yeah, I'm sort of in that same ballpark with you. I just feel like the amount of times I laughed. And by the way, like we just saw another R-rated comedy recently. You and I both, Cocaine Bear. Yes. This was funnier.
Oh my God, this is way better than Cocaine Bear. And funnier. Also, this movie does lean into cheesiness, and it does lean into like B-level action or the way that they go about their business, and they do it way, way better.
I agree. And also, a little bit of a pacing issue in this, but still much better than in Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear comes to a screeching halt. This doesn't. So Goo, I cackled several times, mostly from Cage and Schwartz, but in general, there were some really funny things. The gore was awesome. It really does lean into those B movie tendencies, which reminds you to sort of like not take the movie too seriously, which you need every once in a while. Like I said, a couple of great fight scenes, the bar and the apartment complex. I also thought the end fight was pretty good too. Also, a very nice tie-in with the cocaine in the story and the conclusion of this movie. And, you know, I think the story worked well enough. I wouldn't call it good, but it worked. But obviously all that cop stuff with Awkwafina and her father is the weak point. But I suppose you do need something like that to get the plot going. I do think, though, that there's a version of this movie with a much more satisfying ending and overall story. It feels like they went a little safe in that respect, which is a little disappointing considering all the chances and risks they took overall. Like, I've got this at 33 hot dogs, I think, Goo. I could see it going down to 32. It's my number 3 movie of 2023 so far, out of 11. I'll fully admit, though, I think if they made some better choices and had a better, I forget what the actual term for it, Goo, because we're not learned doctors in this house. But the story that made the plot go, if it was something better than what they gave us, that would bump it up quite a bit. Like, I could see the best version of this movie getting close to 40 hot dogs.
I think if the secondary characters were better and the secondary story was better, this would have been, through the roof. 90 minutes, in and out. And I just thought that those characters in that story just bored me. And I will say this, though, the way that Cage goes about this movie, the way that Renfield is in this movie, and all the good, gory fun, this is kind of what I wanted Hellboy to be in 2019.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly the kind of tone that Hellboy should have took in, and I don't know why it didn't. But again, I do want to reiterate, I was a little disappointed with some aspects of the movie, but because Cage as Dracula is so good, I left being satisfied. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way.
Want to get on to some spoilers?
Sure!
Spoilers. Let me ask you a question, or because I said one thing in my spoiler-free review, and I have something else written here.
Okay.
Does Awkwafina say "fuck you, Kyle" or "fuck you, Doug"?
Kyle.
Okay, because I have Doug here for some reason. Jesus, why do I have Doug?
Was there a Doug in there?
I got it right in the video, so it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, Kyle is the cop that everyone shits on, which I actually did get a hearty laugh. I actually really liked when the sergeant offers her a promotion. Right before they start shooting at her and she takes off. He gets upset that he gets bumped down, but then he immediately congratulates her. That fucking killed me.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So, Mac, the final battle I did think was pretty good, pretty satisfactory, and at least it was all Cage and Hoult. Yeah,
and then we get a little flashback at the beginning of the movie about how Renfield saves Dracula from that circle, whatever they call it, that powder circle there. And, maybe I wasn't thinking, but I thought that was a really sweet tie-in with all the cocaine at the end with the cocaine circle. That was a perfect way to tie those two stories together. Goo, I shit you not. So I saw this actually decently filled theater for opening night. I went Thursday night. I missed the screening again. I'm having a bad run at screenings here. It felt like half the movie people laughed way more than I did at stuff. And then when they got to the apartment scene where Renfield got in because he had the welcome mat, and then he's sitting there just mocking him when he's trying to come up with the answer, I was fucking almost crying laughing, and no one else was nearly laughing as much as I was.
That's one of the best parts of the movie.
It was so good.
Also, I need to point this out. Someone in my theater kept on saying the punchline to the jokes back at the screen.
Oh, no.
And then, giving a little giggle. Stop.
I guess I'm glad I missed that screen.
Oh, my God. Jesus. It was the worst.
Goo, also some great, and to your point, which you made in spoiler-free, some great gore here with the head popping and limb ripping kills. They jump into this really early when that assassin goes to kill the chick's boyfriend, and Renfield punches his fucking head off. I was like, it's gonna be this type of movie. That was really good.
Yeah, because there was that action scene at the apartment where, once again, it's more of the punch, the kick, but then when he flies up and he squashes that guy's dome, it just brings you right back in.
Yeah, and then when he rips the limbs off
And he starts beating the guy with the limbs. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Oh, that was fucking dynamite.
Yeah.
Playing into that gore as well. You were right. I didn't think about this comparison until you said it like 15 minutes ago. He almost looks like the Fly in this movie when he's like nursing back to health. That's a good callback. Good old
yeah.
right there.
It's all gooey, and he's like slowly going up to him and like touching his face and stuff. It's so good. It's so great.
The apartment fight scene. Now, this isn't. I don't really know how to draw a parallel here, but it's the one I was thinking about whilst it was going on. It feels a little bit like the stairwell fight scene from Civil War with all the jumping over the railings and you're sort of in a condensed space. It's not as good as that, but for a Nicholas Hoult and Awkwafina fight scene to be as, to be in that same vein, I thought that was really, really strong. But also fights that take place in small areas like that with all that athleticism is always going to play up to me. So I really enjoyed that. Speaking about a better version of this movie, don't you feel like, and now maybe they couldn't call it Renfield if they did this, don't you feel like it would have been better if towards the end, Dracula is fighting all the bad guys?
Nah.
And Renfield's like a third. It's like a triple threat.
Dracula is a bad guy.
I understand
He's
that.
a really bad guy.
But I think I would have preferred Dracula v. the bad guys with Renfield as the triple threat alternative there. Because it was, I don't know, it was a little like too easy to do Renfield versus Dracula. Renfield wins, it was a little too easy for that.
Maybe they shouldn't have had that at all. Maybe no one should have won. Although I did like how they grinded him up. They put him into cement. Yeah. They made him into cubes. They dumped him into so that was pretty fun with that part.
And then they go back and save everyone from the church group with the Dracula's blood, which was pretty good line at the end from the group leader there. This movie's fun. It's fun. Yeah. I don't know. So that's why, to go back to the 63%, 82%, I get why the critics wouldn't, but the 82%, to your point, some Dracula people, but going into this movie, your expectations should be that this is going to be kind of a B movie with Nicolas Cage playing Dracula. And that's basically what they give you. So I don't really understand not liking it.
Yeah, expectations wise, everything with Cage and with Hoult met it completely, if not exceeded it.
Yeah, I could see people with the expectation that it should have been better. I just don't know how someone wouldn't like this if you.
And it could have been better. It could have been better.
Definitely could have been.
But I think Cage was perfect.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree.
Oh, hi. It's Goo from the Mac and Goo Movie Club. If you like what you just saw, you can find full episodes of our program on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, CastBox, iHeartRadio, or wherever podcasts are found. And now it's time for girls jumping on trampolines.